Admiral Marcus Kaine stood before the holographic display, his weathered face pale in the blue glow of tactical readouts. The bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought sovereigns will hummed with urgent activity, but an unnatural silence had fallen over his command crew. 27 ships. Gone. Not damaged, not retreating, completely obliterated in the span of 8 seconds. "Show me the recording again," Kaine commanded, his voice steady despite the ice forming in his chest. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen manipulated the controls with trembling fingers. The hologram shifted, displaying the edge of Imperial space near the Zirian Nebula. 27 vessels of the 4th Battle Fleet hung in perfect formation, cruisers, destroyers, and the mighty battleship Iron Resolve. Captain Morrison had been commanding that ship. Kaine had served with Morrison for 15 years. Timestamp 1437 hours, Chen reported. Unknown contact appears here. A single dot materialized on the display, roughly cylinder-shaped and dark gray. No energy signatures. No weapons charging. No shields activating. It simply existed where nothing had been moments before. Range to our fleet. Kaine asked. 40,000 kilometers, sir. Well outside optimal firing range for any known weapon system. The display continued. The unknown vessel, if it could even be called that, remained motionless for exactly 3 seconds. Then it happened. No visible beam, no projectile launch, no energy discharge that their senses could detect. The 27 ships simply ceased to exist. Not exploded, not vaporized. They vanished as if reality had forgotten they were ever there. "Dear God," whispered Tactical Officer Reynolds from his station. "Sir, I've run the analysis 17 times. There's no debris field, no energy residue, no quantum signatures. It's like they were just edited out of space." Kaine's jaw tightened. In 43 years of Imperial service, he had seen plasma bombardments that could crack moons, antimatter torpedoes that could ignite small stars, and gravitational weapons that bent space itself. But this defied every law of physics he understood. Communications. Get me Admiral Harrison at Central Command. Priority Alpha transmission. "Sir," came the reply from Communications Officer Torres, "we've been trying to reach Central Command for the past hour. All our quantum entanglement relays are being jammed somehow. We're completely cut off." The bridge fell silent except for the low hum of life support systems. Kaine felt the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders like a physical force. The 4th Battle Fleet had been the Empire's most advanced strike force, equipped with technology that had dominated the galaxy for 3 centuries. And something had erased it without effort. "Sir," Chen called out, her voice cracking slightly. "The unknown vessel is moving." All eyes turned to the hologram. The gray ship was indeed accelerating, not with visible engine exhaust or energy trails, but with a smooth, impossible grace that suggested it was sliding through space rather than being propelled through it. "Course heading directly toward Imperial core systems, sir. Current velocity. This can't be right." "What is it, Lieutenant Commander?" "It's accelerating at 900 GS, sir. No biological crew could survive that kind of stress. And there's still no engine signature." Kaine's mind raced. The Empire's most advanced fighters could barely sustain 15 GS with full inertial dampening. This vessel was pulling forces that should have torn it apart at the molecular level. Time to reach the first inhabited system. Chen's fingers flew over her console. "At current acceleration, 6 hours, sir. 6 hours until it reached Proxima Station, home to 12 million Imperial citizens." Kaine had to make a decision that could determine the fate of the Empire itself. "All hands, this is Admiral Kaine," he announced over the ship's communication system. "We are facing an unknown threat of unprecedented capability. I won't lie to you, what we witnessed today challenges everything we thought we knew about warfare and technology. But we are the Imperial Navy, and we have a duty to protect our people." He paused, looking at the faces of his crew. Young and old, human and alien, all united under the Imperial banner. All looking to him for leadership in a moment when the very foundations of their civilization were cracking. Navigation, plot and intercept course. Engineering, I want maximum power to shields and weapons. If this thing wants to threaten Imperial space, it's going to have to go through us first. "Sir," Torres called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the unknown vessel." Audio only or visual? Both, sir. But the transmission format doesn't match any known protocol. Our computers are struggling to decode it. Static filled the bridge, followed by a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It spoke in perfect Imperial standard, but there was something wrong with the cadence. Too precise, too rhythmic, as if each syllable had been calculated for maximum psychological impact. Imperial vessels, you will cease pursuit. Your weapons are ineffective. Your shields are irrelevant. Your courage is noted but pointless. The transmission cut to static. Kaine felt a chill run down his spine. Not just because of the words, but because of what they implied. This entity, whatever it was, had been monitoring their communications. It knew their language, their protocols, their military structure. "Sir," Reynolds reported, "our sensors are detecting massive energy buildup from the unknown vessel. Power levels they are off the scale." "All hands, brace for impact," Kaine ordered. "Whatever happens next, remember that you saved the Empire and the people who depend on us." The holographic display showed the gray ship slowing its acceleration, rotating slightly to face them. For a moment, Kaine wondered if this was how Captain Morrison had felt in his final seconds, staring into the abyss of the impossible, knowing that everything he had trained for was suddenly inadequate. "Admiral," Chen whispered, "look at this." The display shifted to show a wider view of space around them. Dozens of similar gray vessels were materializing throughout Imperial territory, not arriving through hyperspace or emerging from stealth, simply appearing as if they had always been there. "How many?" Kaine asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Sensors detect 4 to 7 ships so far, sir. All identical to our contact. All moving toward major Imperial installations." The Empire that had ruled the galaxy for 8 centuries was under attack by an enemy they couldn't understand, couldn't track, and couldn't fight. And Admiral Marcus Kaine was about to discover that this was only the beginning. The Imperial Senate erupted in chaos as Senator Valdris slammed his fist against the marble podium. Emergency session lights bathed the ancient chamber in red, casting dramatic shadows across the faces of 300 representatives from across the galaxy. "Order! Order!" Chancellor Thorne's voice boomed through the amplification system, but the senators continued their shouting match. Representatives from the core worlds demanded immediate military action, while Outer Rim delegates called for diplomatic contact attempts. "The Admiral's report is clear," Valdris continued, his voice cutting through the din. 27 ships destroyed in 8 seconds. No debris, no survivors, no explanation. And now these things are heading straight for our most populated systems. Senator Yuki Tanaka from the Centauri Collective stood up, her normally calm demeanor cracked with barely controlled fear. "My colleagues, we must face reality. Our greatest fleet was eliminated without these entities even slowing down. We need to consider evacuation protocols for the core worlds." "Evacuation." Senator Brutus from Mars Colony stepped forward, his augmented voice carrying across the chamber. "We are the Galactic Empire. We have ruled for 800 years. We don't evacuate, we annihilate threats." "With what?" Tanaka shot back. "The 4th Battle Fleet was our most advanced strike force. If they couldn't even scratch these ships, what makes you think?" "Enough." Chancellor Thorne's word echoed with finality. The chamber fell silent, hundreds of pairs of eyes turning toward the elderly leader whose family had guided the Empire for 6 generations. "We will not make decisions based on panic. Admiral Kaine is still tracking the primary vessel. We wait for his full report." Meanwhile, 3 systems away, Kaine watched the tactical display with growing dread. The unknown ship had not responded to any further communication attempts, but it had done something far worse. It had begun broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies. "Communications, what's the content of their transmission?" Kaine asked. Torres looked up from her console, her face ashen. "Sir, it's our own tactical data. Ship positions, crew numbers, weapon specifications, shield frequencies, everything. They are broadcasting our complete military intelligence across the entire sector. How is that possible? Our data is quantum encrypted across 17 layers. Unknown, sir. But it gets worse. They are not just broadcasting our current information, they have historical data going back decades. Fleet movements, classified research projects, diplomatic communications. Kaine felt the deck plates vibrate under his feet as the Sovereign's will pushed its engines beyond recommended limits. They were still 6 hours from intercept, but every minute that passed brought the unknown vessel closer to populated space. "Sir," Chen called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Proxima Station. Admiral, you need to hear this." The main display shifted to show Commander Janet Pierce, the station's commanding officer. Her usually pristine uniform was disheveled, and fear radiated from her eyes. "Admiral Kaine, thank God. We've been trying to reach Central Command, but all quantum relays are down. Sir, we've got a situation here. Our deep space sensors are detecting the approaching vessel, but we're also picking up something else." "Explain, Commander." "There are people leaving the station, sir. Hundreds of them. But not through normal transport. They are just walking into space. Without suits. Without ships. And they are not dying." Kaine's blood went cold. "Repeat that, Commander." "I know how it sounds, sir, but our external cameras are tracking civilian personnel who have somehow exited the station's pressurized sections. They are moving through open space as if it were no environmental gear, no visible propulsion. They appear to be heading toward the incoming vessel. Commander, check your sensor calibration. Run full diagnostics on your observation equipment." "Already done, sir. Multiple times. The readings are accurate. Admiral, there's something else. The people who've left, they are all smiling." The transmission cut to static. Kaine stared at the blank screen, his mind struggling to process what he'd just heard. In space, exposure to vacuum meant instant death. Boiling blood, explosive decompression, cellular destruction within seconds. It was an absolute law of biology. "Sir," Reynolds reported from Tactical, "I'm detecting multiple similar reports from other stations along the vessel's projected path. People are leaving their ships and installations. All of them are somehow surviving in open space." "That's impossible." "Yes, sir, but it's happening." Kaine walked to the observation deck, staring out at the star field ahead. Somewhere out there, an impossible ship was approaching Imperial space, broadcasting their most classified secrets, and somehow inspiring people to walk into the vacuum of space and survive. Everything he had learned about physics, biology, and military strategy was being systematically dismantled. "Admiral," came Torres's voice over the intercom, "we're receiving another transmission from the unknown vessel." "Put it through." The same eerily perfect voice filled the bridge. "Admiral Marcus Kaine, former commander of the 5th Reconnaissance Division, veteran of the Andromedan border conflicts, father of 2 daughters, Sarah and Michelle, currently attending the Imperial Academy on 8th. Kaine's breath caught in his throat. Information about his family was classified at the highest levels. You are wondering how we possess this knowledge. You are wondering what we want. You are wondering if your civilization can survive what comes next. The voice paused, and in that silence, Kaine could hear his own heartbeat. The answers to these questions will reshape your understanding of existence itself. Your empire believes it rules this galaxy. Your empire is mistaken. What you call reality is a construct. What you call impossible is merely forgotten. What you call your fleet was never truly yours to begin with. What do you want? Kaine spoke aloud, knowing somehow that the entity could hear him. We want nothing, Admiral. We are returning what was always ours. Your people are waking up. Your artificial limitations are dissolving. Your empire built its power on suppressing the truth of what humanity really is. And what is that? Something far more magnificent than you remember. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Kaine realized with growing horror that this wasn't just a military crisis. This was an existential threat to everything the Empire represented. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, these entities were telling the truth. Dr. Elena Vasquez burst through the emergency containment doors of the Imperial Research Station's quantum physics laboratory, her lab coat still smoking from the explosion 3 levels below. Behind her, the station's emergency klaxons wailed like dying animals, and the air tasted of ozone and fey. "Director Walsh," she called out, scanning the chaos of overturned equipment and shattered displays. "We need to evacuate the research section now." Director Marcus Walsh emerged from behind a collapsed server bank, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "Elena, the containment fields are failing. All of them. Simultaneously. That's impossible. The quantum isolation chambers are powered by independent fusion cores. They can't all fail at once unless—" Her words died as she saw the readings on the emergency display. Every experiment in the facility was showing the same impossible result: complete quantum coherence across all matter. The fundamental forces that kept atoms apart, that maintained the structure of reality itself, were somehow being overridden. Called out research assistant Kim from across the lab. "You need to see this. The test subjects from Project Mirror, they are changing." Elena and Walsh rushed to the observation chamber. Inside the reinforced transparent aluminum barrier, 3 volunteers who had undergone experimental consciousness enhancement procedures were floating 6 inches above the ground. Their eyes were closed, expressions peaceful, but their bodies were shifting between solid and translucent states. "How long have they been like this?" Elena demanded. "Started 15 minutes ago, right when we detected that unknown ship approaching the system. Dr. Vasquez, their brain activity is off the charts. The patterns don't match anything in our databases. It's like they're accessing parts of their minds that shouldn't exist." Through the chamber's intercom, one of the subjects spoke without opening her eyes. "Elena, you're afraid. You don't need to be." Elena's blood froze. The subject was Dr. Maria Santos, a colleague who had volunteered for the consciousness experiments 3 months ago. But Maria's voice sounded different, layered, as if multiple people were speaking in perfect synchronization. "Maria, can you hear me?" "I can hear everything, Elena. The stars singing. The space between spaces. The truth that your empire has spent centuries hiding from itself." Maria's eyes opened, but instead of her familiar brown irises, they glowed with soft white light. "We're remembering, Elena. We're remembering what we were before they made us forget." "Who made you forget? What are you talking about?" "The founders of your empire. They discovered the truth about human consciousness 300 years ago. They found out that reality is malleable, that human minds can reshape matter and energy at the quantum level. So they built a suppression system, technological implants, educational conditioning, chemical modifications to food and water supplies." Walsh stepped forward, his scientific skepticism warring with what he was witnessing. "That's ridiculous. Humans can't manipulate quantum fields with thought alone. The energy requirements would be irrelevant," Maria continued, now floating completely horizontal, her body beginning to shimmer like heat distortion. "Energy is consciousness, Director. Consciousness is energy. Your empire learned this and decided it was too dangerous. They chose control over evolution." The station shuddered as explosions echoed from the lower levels. Elena checked her wrist display. The unknown ship was now only 2 hours from their position. "Maria, the ship that destroyed our fleet, what is it?" "It's not a ship, Elena. It's us. It's what we become when we stop accepting limitations." Maria's form became completely translucent for a moment before solidifying again. "The beings you call aliens, they are human consciousness that evolved beyond physical constraints centuries ago. They left this part of the galaxy when the Empire was founded, but they've been watching, waiting. Waiting for what? For enough of us to remember. For the suppression to weaken. For the first crack in the Empire's control matrix." Another subject, Dr. James Wright, opened his glowing eyes. "The ship isn't coming to destroy your empire, Elena. It's coming to wake everyone up, to show them what they really are." Elena's communicator crackled to life. "Dr. Vasquez, this is Admiral Kaine aboard the Sovereign's Will. We're detecting massive quantum disturbances throughout Imperial space. People are reporting impossible phenomena, telekinesis, matter manipulation, enhanced cognitive abilities. We need your expertise." Elena looked at Maria, who smiled with an expression of infinite compassion. "Tell him the truth, Elena. Tell him that his empire was built on the greatest lie in galactic history. Tell him that every human in the galaxy is capable of reshaping reality with their consciousness alone. Tell him that the unknown ship isn't an invasion force, it's a rescue mission. And if he doesn't believe me, then watch, Maria said softly, as 3 billion people across the Empire begin to remember who they really are. As if summoned by her words, Elena's communicator exploded with dozens of simultaneous emergency transmissions from across the galaxy. Voices overlapped in panic and confusion. Civilians are levitating in the main plaza. Ship manifested out of thin air in Dock 7. People are walking through solid walls. My God, they are healing incurable diseases with touch. Elena looked at the readings on her instruments, at her transformed colleagues, at the impossible data streaming across every screen. The Empire's greatest secret was unraveling in real time, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The age of suppression was ending. The age of awakening had begun. Emperor Constantine VII stood in the highest tower of the Imperial Palace, his ancient hands gripping the crystal railing as he watched his capital city tear itself apart. Below, the sprawling metropolis of New Rome burned with fires that defied physics, flames that burned purple and gold, fires that healed instead of destroyed, fires that danced in perfect spirals toward the stars. "Your Majesty," came the voice of his closest advisor, Lord Chancellor Arcturus, "the reports are coming in from every sector. The awakening is accelerating." Constantine didn't turn around. At 150 years old, kept alive by Imperial biotechnology and sheer willpower, he had seen the Empire rise to unprecedented heights. Now he was watching it transform into something unrecognizable. How many systems affected? All of them, sire. Every human colony, every station, every ship. The suppression network we've maintained for 3 centuries is failing simultaneously across the galaxy. Through the tower's transparent walls, Constantine watched a group of children in the palace gardens below. They were creating geometric patterns of light in the air with their bare hands, laughing as they reshaped the fundamental structure of photons like playing with colored clay. Their parents watched in wonder instead of fear. The generational conditioning was breaking down fastest among the young. The research stations are reporting complete breakdown of the quantum dampening fields, Arcturus continued, consulting his data pad with trembling fingers. Dr. Vasquez's team has confirmed it. The suppression technology is being systematically deactivated by some kind of consciousness-based virus. Not a virus, Constantine said quietly. A reminder. Arcturus paused. "Your Majesty." Constantine finally turned, his weathered face showing an expression Arcturus had never seen before, a mixture of profound sadness and strange relief. "Bring up the Imperial archives. Authorization code Constantine 77 Alpha. Access the forbidden Codex." "Sire, those files have been sealed for 312 years. Yes, the exact length of time since we encountered our first awakened human colony and made the decision that would define our empire." The holographic display in the center of the chamber activated, showing documents that bore the Imperial seal but dated from the Empire's earliest days. Constantine gestured, and the files began to scroll past research reports, military assessments, philosophical debates, and finally, a video recording marked with the highest classification levels. "Play the Founder's recording." The display showed a much younger Constantine, barely 40 years old, standing alongside the other founding members of the Imperial Council. The setting was a sterile research facility, and in the background, Elena could see what appeared to be humans floating in meditation pods, their bodies surrounded by cascading energy fields. "Council log, star date 2387, the younger Constantine spoke. "We have confirmed the existence of awakened human populations throughout the Outer Rim. These individuals demonstrate abilities that our science cannot explain. Matter manipulation, consciousness-based faster-than-light travel, apparent immortality through quantum regeneration." The recording continued as the younger Constantine gestured toward the pods. Initial contact revealed that this represents humanity's natural evolutionary state. According to their historical records, humans achieved this level of consciousness approximately 5,000 years ago, but chose to limit themselves to experience physical existence in its full complexity. Lord Arcturus watched in stunned silence as the truth of the Empire's founding unfolded before him. However, the recording continued. Integration with awakened populations has proven problematic. Standard economic, political, and military structures become irrelevant when individual citizens can manipulate matter and energy at will. Social order, as we understand it, cannot exist alongside unlimited human potential. The current Constantine paused the recording. Do you understand, Arcturus? We didn't suppress awakened humans because they were dangerous to our people. We suppressed them because they were dangerous to our power. But the stability protocols, the protection of civilization, lies we told ourselves to justify enslaving our own species' evolution. Constantine gestured, and the recording resumed. Therefore, his younger self continued, the Council has voted to implement the limitation protocol. All human colonies will be subjected to quantum consciousness dampening, administered through food and water supplies, atmospheric processing, and mandatory biotechnological implants. Educational systems will be restructured to reinforce the belief that current human limitations are natural and absolute. The recording showed detailed schematics of the suppression network, vast quantum field generators hidden in the cores of inhabited planets, consciousness-dampening satellites orbiting every major world, and most disturbing of all, the systematic alteration of human genetic expression to limit natural awakening potential. The awakened populations who refuse integration will be relocated beyond Imperial space, the younger Constantine concluded. This protocol will ensure the continuation of stable civilization under Imperial guidance for centuries to come. Arcturus stared at the recording in horror. Your Majesty, the implications. We've been chemically and technologically lobotomizing our entire species for 3 centuries. To maintain order, to preserve the Empire, to keep ourselves in power. Constantine's voice carried the weight of centuries of guilt, and now they've come back. The tower's communication system activated, showing Admiral Kaine's haggard face. Your Majesty, the unknown vessel has reached Proxima station, but it's not attacking. It's healing the station, repairing damage we didn't even know existed. And the people who left the station are returning, but they are different. They are helping others awaken. Admiral, how many of your crew have been affected? Approximately 60%, sire. They are still following orders, still performing their duties, but they are also doing impossible things. Lieutenant Chen just walked through a bulkhead to reach a trapped crew member. Engineer Martinez is repairing hull damage by touching the metal with his bare hands. Constantine closed his eyes. The empire his family had built was crumbling, but perhaps something better was taking its place. Your Majesty, Arcturus whispered, what do we do? Before Constantine could answer, the palace's defense systems activated automatically. A new presence had appeared in orbit above the capital world, another of the gray vessels, massive and serene, hovering just beyond the planet's defensive grid. And from that ship came a voice that every person on the planet heard simultaneously, regardless of language or distance. Children of Ith, children of stars, it is time to come home. Constantine felt something stirring in his mind, ancient memories surfacing, genetic potentials awakening despite a lifetime of suppression. For the first time in 3 centuries, he began to remember what humanity was truly capable of. The Empire's greatest secret was no longer secret, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Kaine materialized on the bridge of the unknown vessel, his consciousness sliding through space in a way that should have been impossible but felt as natural as breathing. The transition had taken 3 seconds. One moment he was standing on the Sovereign's will, the next he existed here, his physical form reconstructed from pure thought and energy. The bridge, if it could be called that, defied every architectural principle he knew. Surfaces flowed like liquid metal but felt solid under his feet. Walls curved into infinity, suggesting the space was larger inside than outside. And everywhere, soft light pulsed in rhythm with something that felt remarkably like a heartbeat. "Welcome, Marcus." The voice came from a figure approaching through the flowing geometry of the space. It was human in basic form but moved with a grace that suggested complete mastery over physical laws. Its features shifted slightly as Kaine watched, not changing shape, but optimizing themselves for perfect communication and understanding. "You're the one who destroyed my fleet. We are the one who released your fleet from the illusion of destruction. Death, as your empire understands it, is another construct of the suppression system. Your crews are discovering this as we speak." Kaine's mind reeled. "That's impossible. I saw the ships vanish. There was nothing left." "Matter and energy are information, Marcus. Information can be stored, moved, transformed. Your ships existed. They were relocated to a space between spaces while their crews underwent rapid awakening. Would you like to see them?" The bridge around them shifted, walls becoming transparent to reveal a vast chamber filled with the 27 ships of the 4th Battle Fleet. But they were no longer the gray metal vessels he remembered. They pulsed with organic life, their hulls transformed into something that seemed grown rather than built. And moving between them, he could see his crews, but they were flying through space without ships, their consciousness extending across impossible distances. "Captain Morrison," Kaine whispered. As if summoned by his thoughts, Morrison appeared beside him, not walking, not transported, simply present. But Morrison's eyes held the same gentle glow that Kaine had seen in the awakened subjects at the research station. "Marcus, old friend, I need to show you something." Morrison gestured, and reality shifted around them. They stood now on Earth, but not the Earth Kaine remembered. This was Earth as it had been 5,000 years ago, before the Empire, before the suppression. Cities of living crystal stretched toward the sky, their walls breathing with bioluminescent patterns. Humans moved through the air like thoughts made manifest, creating art from starlight and music from the quantum vibrations of atoms themselves. "This is what we were," Morrison explained, "before we chose to experience limitation, before we forgot ourselves so completely that we needed an empire to tell us who we were. But the stability, the order, the progress we've made, built on the systematic crippling of our own potential. Marcus, look closer." The scene shifted to show the early days of the Imperial expansion. Young Constantine and his council, meeting with awakened human communities, documenting their abilities with a mixture of wonder and terror. Then came the decision, the choice to suppress rather than integrate, to control rather than evolve. They were afraid, Morrison continued. Afraid that awakened humans wouldn't need governments, wouldn't need armies, wouldn't need the complex hierarchies that gave their lives meaning. So they chose to keep everyone asleep rather than risk losing their relevance. And now you're forcing everyone to wake up. We're not forcing anything. We're simply removing the artificial barriers that prevented natural awakening. Each person chooses for themselves whether to remember or remain limited. Kaine watched as the vision showed the current state of the galaxy. Across hundreds of worlds, humans were discovering abilities they never knew they possessed. Some embraced the awakening immediately, transforming their bodies and expanding their consciousness. Others resisted, clinging to familiar limitations even as reality bent around them. What happens to the Empire? What happens to any structure built on false foundations? It transforms or it collapses. But the people, the beautiful, magnificent people you've spent your career protecting, they survive. They evolve. They become what they were always meant to be. Morrison placed a hand on Kaine's shoulder, and suddenly Kaine could feel the consciousness of every awakened human across the galaxy. A vast network of interconnected minds, each unique but part of something infinitely larger. You have a choice, Marcus. You can return to your ship and try to maintain the old order, fighting against an awakening that's already begun. Or you can help your people through the transition. Help them understand that they are not losing their humanity, they are finally finding it. Kaine closed his eyes and reached out with senses he didn't know he possessed. He could feel the crew of the Sovereign's will, some of them beginning to awaken, others struggling with fear and confusion. He could sense Emperor Constantine in his palace, wrestling with centuries of guilt and the dawning realization that his life's work had been built on humanity's greatest betrayal. The people who choose not to awaken, what happens to them? They continue to live as they always have, on worlds designed to maintain the familiar limitations. Free will includes the right to remain as you are. But those limitations become a choice rather than an imposed prison. Kaine opened his eyes and looked at his old friend. Morrison's form was shifting now, becoming something more than human while remaining fundamentally, recognizably himself. I need to go back, Kaine said finally. My crew needs me. The Empire needs someone to help them understand that this isn't an invasion, it's a liberation. We know you would choose service over personal transformation. It's who you are, Marcus. It's who you've always been. As Kaine prepared to return to his ship, Morrison added softly, Tell them they don't need to be afraid. Tell them they are not losing the Empire, they are gaining the universe. Kaine found himself back on the bridge of the Sovereign's will, but everything had changed. His crew looked at him with new understanding, and through the viewports, he could see the galaxy transforming. Ships of living light sailed between the stars, carrying awakened humans to explore realities they had never imagined. The Empire would survive, but as something entirely new, a guide for those choosing to remain in familiar limitation, and a bridge for those ready to transcend everything they thought they knew about existence itself. Humanity's true journey was just beginning. Epilogue, The New Awakening, 1 year later. Admiral Kaine stood on the observation deck of the transformed Sovereign's will, watching as his daughter Sarah practiced consciousness-based navigation in the space nearby. Her form shimmered between physical and pure energy as she learned to pilot vessels with thought alone, part of the new generation that would never know the artificial limitations their ancestors had endured. The Empire still existed, but barely resembled its former self. Emperor Constantine had abdicated, choosing to spend his remaining years helping other elderly citizens understand the awakening process. The Senate had evolved into something more like a meditation council, where decisions were made through collective consciousness rather than political maneuvering. Admiral, came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Chen, who had chosen to maintain her physical form while expanding her mental capabilities beyond anything previously thought possible. We're receiving a transmission from the Outer Rim colonies. Put it through. The display showed Commander Pierce from Proxima Station, but she was no longer confined to the station's command center. She floated in open space, surrounded by a bubble of consciously maintained atmosphere, conducting a symphonic arrangement of asteroid movements that was transforming the entire system into a work of art. Admiral Kaine, we've made contact with the awakened communities beyond Imperial space. They're inviting us to join the Galactic Consciousness Network, a collective of evolved civilizations that spans multiple galaxies. Kaine smiled, feeling the gentle presence of Morrison and the other awakened crew members of the 4th Battle Fleet, who now served as guides for newly awakening humans across the galaxy. Tell them we accept, he said. Tell them that humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. As the transmission ended, Kaine felt a deep sense of completion. The Empire's greatest crisis had become its greatest gift. The panic had given way to wonder, the destruction had become transformation, and the invasion had revealed itself as the most profound homecoming in human history. In the distance, he could see Eighth, now a beacon of consciousness that reached across the galaxy, reminding every human that they were far more magnificent than they had ever dared to imagine. The age of limitation was over. The age of infinite possibility had begun, and somewhere in the quantum foam between realities, the gray ships that had started it all smiled with consciousness vast as space itself, knowing that another species had remembered how to dream without boundaries.